That all down, we do have a number of things we got to talk about here today, and we're going to get things started with this. Well, today is Monday, June the 16th, which means yesterday, for those of you who take advanced math, that yesterday was the 15th. And June 15th, 2025, Rob, marks the 20th anniversary of Batman Begins. As you can see it here, Batman Begins turns 20 years old. Yesterday was the official anniversary of it. Number one, feeling a little old. This movie was 20 years ago.
It's crazy.
But, you know, I was thinking about it a little bit, about the actual importance of the film. Not just because this was a film that led us to The Dark Knight, which most people agree is a top 5 best comic book movie ever made. Some people believe it is a number 1 comic book movie ever made. But I think its legacy goes beyond that. You know, this movie came out in 2010. I think it is one of the 2 most significant comic book movies of all time. I think the most significant comic book movie of all time was the first X-Men film. Because while we had movies like Blade and whatever, like Batman and Robin essentially kind of killed the comic book genre for a bit. And yeah, we had Blade, and Blade is great, but Blade didn't change the landscape. It's when that X-Men movie came out. And I've heard multiple producers and everything talk about the fact that it's when we in Hollywood saw X-Men, that first X-Men movie, starting with that concentration camp scene and all that kind of stuff, that we realized comic book movies could be different. And it kind of launched the resurgence of the comic book films. But I would suggest that the next step in that evolution, see a little play on X-Men language there? The next step in that evolution was actually Batman Begins. That again kind of told the world, you could make a totally different kind of comic book movie. And I mean, it kind of became the comic book movie that kind of keyed the phrase of reboot and all this kind of stuff. And it launched for us a series that some would argue is maybe the greatest comic book trilogy of all time, with Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. I'm not a huge fan of The Dark Knight Rises, but whatever. But you just can't look past its importance. And yeah, Christopher Nolan had done the memory with a short
Inception.
Not Inception.
Memento.
Memento. Thank you. He had done Memento, which really put him on the map for a lot of studios. And Christian Bale had done American Psycho and several other things that, you know, studios, but it was the movie that really put both Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale on the map for film fans. I mean, that's what made them household names, was these things. And we're sitting here at 20 years later, Rob. I mean, it's hard to imagine that this film is now 20 years old. What are your thoughts when you look back on 20 years of Batman Begins and the movie's significance?
Well, it's, for me, I was actually working on Superman Returns in Sydney, Australia, and the cast and crew went and saw Batman Begins. You know, we all walked across the lot because the Fox Studios lot is next to an entertainment center where they had a big movie theater.
Right.
It's the same place we all went and saw Revenge of the Sith too. And so, you know, everybody was looking at it like, here we are working on a Superman reboot and going to see a Batman reboot. And I think everybody was, despite what you think of Superman Returns, I think everybody was really encouraged and impressed by Batman Begins because of the tone that it took. I mean, what's interesting is, you know, and this is, you mentioned Bryan Singer's X-Men. I feel that X-Men is the same, in the same boat that you feel that it is in. But for me, the real comic book resurgence began in the scene with Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, because this was pre-Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And you had these 2 powerhouse actors acting together in a scene, you know, you get out of my head, Charles, and all this. And you're watching these 2 characters. It was the most least comic booky, but yet the most reverent comic book scene, because anyone who's an X-Men fan, I was a huge X-Men fan. I read 30 years of X-Men comics, and I still to this day love the X-Men. And to see those two actors bring that gravitas.
Yeah, it was something totally new.
Well, and look, we had Sam Raimi's Spider-Man come out, and that was fun and all of that, but that was still set in comic book world. I mean, it was a heightened, colorful New York and Green Goblin, and it was great. But you get to Batman Begins, and the way when Christian Bale goes on his walkabout and is going up to find Ra's al Ghul and is going to go up and find the League of Shadows, and he's walking across that glacier, and you see those, and you're looking at this going, okay, this movie looks and feels different than any other comic book movie that we've ever seen before, because it was both grounded and fantastical, but it was shot like it was not a quote unquote comic book movie. And it was played almost straight,
like a crime thriller.
Yeah, like same with the Penguin. And you're watching this going, and there was a gravitas and the removal between the audience from the fantastic to the real. Comic book movies, X-Men 1 still has Toad and Sabretooth. Yeah. You know, and you still got Magneto, and you still got Bruce Davidson being turned into a creep, dies, his affliction that he's, and Rogue and Wolverine. So it's got that comic book stuff. Batman Begins has none of that. Even the Scarecrow is a nightmare-induced drug hallucination when you see, his face. And that told you that comic book movies are now elevated out. Because look, Superman the movie you could say that about, but it still is elevated. Gene Hackman's kind of goofy, and Ned Beatty, Otis Berg. It's just a bitty place, Luthor. Just a little bitty place,
Otis Berg.
Yeah. Mom or Lex, my mother lives in Hackensack. But the difference, Batman Begins told the world that comic book movies have reached another level. And I think then the MCU ran with that and combined the comic book pop art of the comic book origins, but put it together with real human pathos. Like Tony Stark was a real guy. He felt real. You felt like you knew him, that he could exist in our world today. And I think you're right. Batman Begins was a doorway that changed the perception of what comic book movies could be. And that was all Christopher Nolan. Yeah. And the ultimate example of that was the promise he made with Batman Begins was fulfilled in The Dark Knight.
That really fulfilled with The Dark Knight. And again, it's hard to imagine, but it was 20 years ago. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, BetterHelp. Guys, one of the things that's really frustrating to me is that there's still a lot of stigma around men's mental health, but it should not be that way. Men are expected to always stay strong, keep it together, provide, perform, and yet over 6 million men in the US experience depression each year, and many go undiagnosed. It's okay to admit that you could use some help. Real strength is being able to say, I need to talk to someone. That's where BetterHelp comes in. With over 35,000 licensed therapists, BetterHelp is the largest online therapy platform in the world, having already helped over 5 million people. And it's super convenient. You can join sessions from anywhere, whenever it works for you. You can even switch therapists anytime at no extra charge. And the results speak for themselves. BetterHelp has a 4.9 out of 5 rating on the App Store with over 1.7 million reviews. So guys, if you're feeling the weight of the world, don't carry it alone. Talk it out with BetterHelp. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can connect you with mental health professionals who understand what you're going through. Our listeners and viewers get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Campea. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Campea. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Batman Begins is now 20 years old. Now, after you get over feeling so old, what do you think about its legacy and its place in the overall kind of history now of the comic book genre? Whatever you guys think of its importance, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.